Hello and welcome to this video, Dynamic Inventories. In this video, we're going to take a look at the requirements for dynamic inventories, how to create a dynamic inventory with minimal scripting, how to interrogate a dynamic inventory, performance enhancements that can be achieved through the use of _meta within dynamic inventories, the use of the Ansible Python framework for dynamic inventories. Up until now, we've been using an inventory of hosts defined in our Ansible configuration. We've seen that we can associate inventories with both inline groups and host vars, i.e. those defined in the same inventory, and group and host vars defined in their respective host_vars and group_vars directories. We've seen that when using Ansible, we can use the -i option to specify the inventory file. If, however, that file is executable, Ansible will use this file as a dynamic inventory where it will execute the file and use the returned content as the inventory. Ansible has the ability to use dynamic inventories, i.e. inventories that are executable and provide dynamic output according to the context of the script. The key requirements for a dynamic inventory: it needs to be an executable file, but can be written in any language, providing that it can be executed from the command line. It should accept the command line options of --list and --host, hostname. It will return a JSON encoded dictionary of inventory content when used with --list. It needs to return a basic JSON encoded dictionary structure for --hostname. Here in revision 1, as part of the course, we have an example template that can be used to rapidly bootstrap dynamic inventories. Firstly, we're going to take a look at this. Before we explore the code, the script is called inventory.py. We've currently removed all references to our inventory from the Ansible config and the hosts file. The dynamic inventory in this script is going to dynamically recreate the inventory that we were previously using. If we run this with the --list option, we'll see some content that's familiar to us, but this time in a JSON formatted output. In the output, we can see our groups: CentOS, Ubuntu, the control group, and Linux. We can see the corresponding group vars, and subsequently the Linux group has the children specified. If we pick one of our hosts, we can also run with the --host command. For example, if we pick CentOS1, we know that that has specific host vars for the Ansible_port. If we pick a host which doesn't have host vars, we'll get an empty dictionary for the host vars values. This is the basis for a dynamic inventory. Any programming or scripting language, as long as it accepts the inputs and provides the correct output, will work with Ansible as a dynamic inventory. Let's try this out with Ansible. If you recall, the -i option allows us to specify our inventory, so we'll run against all hosts and use -i to point at our dynamic inventory. We'll use --list -hosts to show the available hosts within the inventory. Okay, great. So you can actually see there that we've got 7 hosts listed, the ones we're using in our lab. Let's use this with the ping module to check that all of the associated hosts are working as expected. Beautiful. So let's take a look at the code and understand what's going on behind the scenes. This is Python code, but it's kept as simple as possible, commented throughout, and we're going to start at the bottom and work our way through this. So if you don't have any experience with Python, don't worry. Firstly, we're going to start at the bottom. The entry point of the script is here, where we'll create an inventory object. This in turn will execute the __init__ object constructor. We're passing a parameter of include_hostvars_in_list. At present, this is false. We're going to come back to this. Let's take a look at the constructor. We have a logger here which is intentionally temporarily disabled, and we're going to use this later on to debug and look behind the scenes. The next line stores the true or false value that was passed in when we made the call at the bottom of the script. We're using the Python argparse module to capture the command line options. We can see here the -- list and the -- host. For -- list, we're using store true. Essentially, it will store true or false depending on whether or not this parameter was passed. For -- host, we're using store to store the input. We then check the args, and if we've not had either list or hosts, we show the usage and exit. Providing that the inventory has been called with either -- list or -- host, we'll move on to this section where we'll define the inventory. Let's take a look at this. Here we're just storing a group of hosts and a dictionary for the host vars. These are being stored in self, so they are within the inventory object that we called. Going back, if this was called with the -- list option, we execute the list method. Otherwise, we execute the host method. Here's the list method and here's the host method. Each of these respectively pass back either the group context or the host context. Finally, the dictionary is passed to print_JSON, where we pretty print the JSON output. The pretty print is not actually a requirement of Ansible, but I think it's useful to have, especially where we want to troubleshoot or query your dynamic inventory. When we look at the list and the host methods, we're going to turn on the debugging option. This will allow us to write debug messages to a file. You may at this point be wondering, why can't we just print the content? And the reason being, standard out, i.e. where a print statement would go, is used for the JSON printed by the script. Therefore, if we simply print a message, we'll end up breaking the JSON content expected from the script. Let's go into revision 2 where we have the same file but with the debugging turned on. What I want to show you here is how Ansible uses the -- list and -- host parameters. So let's do something simple like listing the hosts. And if we take a look at our debug log file, we can see that something interesting has happened. Firstly, Ansible called our script with -- list. It retrieved a list of hosts. Then, for each host, it reran the script with the -- host option to gather the host vars. We have 7 hosts listed here, and in this example, the execution for the -- host parameters took a considerable amount of time for each of the hosts. Now imagine if we had 1,000 hosts. That would be a significant weight using the variances between each of these iterations. To show this, if you step into revision 3, we can essentially create a bulk load of fake hosts to try this out. If you're following this and you're actually doing this yourself, you can use something like the following to create the hosts entries. And then these can be added into the dynamic inventory as follows. What we're going to do here is watch our log in real time and see how the increase of hosts affects our dynamic inventory. So we'll run a tail on the log file in the background, so whenever any new content is actually written to this, we'll see it presented to the terminal. Let's try running our list hosts again. We'll also run this with the prefix of time so we can actually see how long the whole execution takes. For the purposes of the video, I've sped this up, but you can actually see there from the output that this took 1 minute and 9 seconds. So again, that's a considerable amount of time, and we've not actually really executed anything here. This is obviously a problem, and as a result, an enhancement was made to Ansible to mitigate the need to call each host for the host var information. Instead, the host var information is embedded in the -- list output. If you step into revision 4, the script template that is provided as part of this course has this option that I made reference to implemented. And to facilitate this, we can make a change to automatically provide these benefits by changing the inventory option to true. Run the inventory again, taking a look at the list method. You'll see that if this option is set, it makes the host var information part of the list output under a key called _meta. If we just scroll up to the top, and here I'm just going to press return and then I'm going to press Q to quit out of this. We still have tail running in the background. Let's rerun our -- list host. Because the _meta key exists, it will use this for the host vars and won't call the script with -- host for every host. Okay, a massive improvement there. You can see that actually took 3 seconds. For context, this enhancement was added in Ansible 1.3. I very much doubt that you'll be working with an old version of Ansible like this, but if you are, you'll have to use the list and host approach. If you're using a newer version, your script just needs to be able to support the list option and provide the _ metadata as per the examples here. So now we've covered the fundamentals of the requirements for creating and using a dynamic inventory, and should you wish, you could use the template we've provided here to create your own dynamic inventories. If so, the focus of the code section would be where it creates the JSON list of hosts. Take a moment to review the code. I have, wherever possible, used comments to explain what the script is doing, and therefore, even if you don't have experience with Python, you will hopefully be able to follow the script and use it as a template for your own dynamic inventories. Lastly, if you haven't already, you may want to remove the background tail on the logs file. When we progress through the module using Ansible with AWS, we'll be making use of AWS's dynamic inventory, which is one of the best references for design and considerations. If you have a project where you'll need to make use of a dynamic inventory to query your own content management system, I strongly suggest looking at the AWS inventory for reference. That's it for this video. Join me in the next one. Register and when.